Hey guys, it's me, the Ekron Writer. Welcome you to another Final Fantasy project from OBS Studios. And this one happens to be something I came up with about 10 years ago, actually. Almost before I did the Dissidia Shadowgate crossover. And this one happens to be Cecil-centric, since it happens to revolve around my favorite character of the entire series, Cecil Harvey. This one highlights his introduction into the world of Dissidia, and even though there has been a quest with some of the heroes that seem official but not yet translated, which means they didn't make it outside of Japan, I just happened to make one up. And this one happens to take place in the events before Dissidia Duodecum. So, and once... Actually, I should apologize for my absence about 3 weeks ago because I wasn't getting a lot of sleep and I wasn't getting a lot of inspiration. I didn't have much of a drive to continue with another project. So, here I am now. So, let's get this thing going, shall we? Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Before I start, Dissidia belongs to Squeenix. Enjoy the Cecil-centric story. Alright, Chapter 1. It was very quiet in the world of darkness. There was hardly any light, and the numerous stone towers made it an ideal hiding place for enemy assault. For now, the turf was empty, and only a sleeping paladin laid in the center of it. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at his surroundings. And pardon me if I don't do his voice right. I don't do Yuri Lowenthal very good. "Where am I?" he said, his voice still deep with drowsiness. As he sat, he felt his head. It wasn't aching, but it felt like it was just as empty as the place he was in now. He was suffering from total amnesia. He had no idea who he was, where he came from, or even why he was here. As his vision cleared, he started to stand up. He felt heavy as he noticed that he was wearing a protective suit of armor, plus a sword was sticking out from his back scabbard. He looked around curiously and started to wander. He tried to call out, but nobody was there to hear him, and all there was an echo amongst the barren place. While he was surveying between the towers, someone was watching him from above. He almost looked like the stranger, but he was flying and was wearing some robes. He went by the name of Kuja, and he was quite well known for his poetic speeches. "Ah, there is a new chip off the old block, wandering aimlessly like his own mind. He is as empty as a barren wasteland. Well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to give this newbie a little persuasion." He landed to the ground on his feet, and since the paladin was so far away, he only noticed the sound of Kuja's landing. He knew someone was here and immediately took out his sword. "Who's there?" No one heard him. The stranger was messing around, hovering from place to place, hiding amongst the towers. The warrior became anxious as he looked frantically for him. It almost sounded like there was a lot of enemies flying around, but thanks to his sixth sense, there was only one. He could hear Kuja's laughing as he went. "Ha ha 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 ha! Where are you? Show yourself!" he said firmly. Kuja appeared from hiding behind a tower and laughed in amusement. "You got some talent for a mere human. Not too many people have that, you know. Be grateful that you do. Otherwise you would never have found me." "Who are you? What do you want?" he asked, assuming he was an enemy. Kuja simply just smiled. "Just testing you. A lot of people would be fooled by a person's looks, rather than what he can bring to the table." "What?" He used his hands like he was swatting a fly. "Oh, never mind. I have a pretty good feeling that you are quite the warrior. Oh, where are my manners? We haven't even met, have we?" "No." "The name is Kuja. I'm one of the minions who work for Chaos." Apparently, the paladin had no idea who he was. He looked at Kuja blankly and said, "I'm Cecil. I've never been here before, and you have no idea who you are, do you? And quite frankly, you don't know who Chaos and Cosmos are." Cosmos and Chaos? This is almost easier than I thought. I'm sure I can easily use him since he has nothing to fight for. However, he does have some potential. I guess he'll be a great recruit." He immediately snapped out of his reverie and insisted, Cecil, I've noticed that you have great power inside you. Would you mind showing me what you could do? It would just be a little spar. Nothing personal." Cecil just closed his eyes as he thought of fighting someone he never met. "Oh, don't be shy. I want to see how strong you are. Now, are you going to fight me or not?" Kuja asked impatiently. Cecil opened his eyes and declared, "All right, I'll take you on. Then let us make beautiful music." The fight wasn't too intense, just to see who's got the best moves. It was like an exhibition match, and since Cecil just came to Dissidia, he didn't have much of an experience as Kuja. The paladin could only learn Saint's Fall as a critical move, the rest of them were just basic. During the fight, however, he had the ability to transform into a Dark Knight. He could only do it while he was on the ground, but he didn't know that he could become a different fighter during battle. He practically didn't remember himself as a Dark Knight, and he can only use Soul Eater. You know, that that ground sweeping move that he uses as an HP attack. He can only learn those. When he changed, something strange had happened. Whereas the paladin was calm, the Dark Knight was fierce and also had some feelings of hatred. In addition, his powers seemed to have grown while in this form. Kuja realized the warrior had two personas, and he wanted to use that to his advantage. Intriguing. The genome's attacks were lethal, but at times he did hold back because of Cecil's inexperience. Kuja won, however, his opponent wasn't done yet. Cecil was in his paladin form, but dark energy was surrounding him. He was also trying to fight against something, an urge for chaos. Kuja sensed this and he just sat back as the warrior held his head and screamed in agony. Instantly, he turned himself into a dark knight, but this time there was no turning back. This was what exactly Kuja wanted to do. He wanted him to experience these negative feelings and gain more power as he did. Once he was in that dark state, his soul went corrupt, and Kuja wanted to use him to fight for chaos. He finally had his chance. When the transformation was complete, Kuja slowly walked to him. He lifted his head and Kuja spoke. "You remember I work for Chaos, right?" The Dark Knight nodded slowly. Suddenly he felt numb. "Why don't you serve him too? We'll be partners, and the war will turn in our favor. You know what? Why don't we simply forget about him, and then you won't have to worry about duty, obligation, or the mushy stuff." Turned agitated as he said it. "We'll fight our own battles, and rule this world for ourselves. Shall we?" He held out his hand for Cecil to grab. He did and stood up. "Let's," he responded in a hypnotic tone. "Finally, my plan is working! Let the curtains rise to this new performance." Then he started to make evil laughs. "Come, my apprentice. I'll show you the true meaning of battle and conquest." As he led the way, Cecil followed. Although Cecil wasn't entirely evil as a Dark Knight, a lot of others were, like Leon in Final Fantasy II. So was he, since he'd forgotten how it felt to be in his previous form. It was like his own personal curse. However, Kuja was planning for this to happen so he could use him. Also, this story is based on a dream I had several years ago. It was vague, but I'm making it up as I go, which is inside the world of darkness, with Cecil and Kuja fighting in that stage. It's not over yet. Next part will be up shortly. Isn't it weird that I had this dream take place in the world of darkness? This could be a perfect setting after Kuja's failed attempt to slaughter the Cosmos warriors in the first report. Very weird. And I suppose that's it for now. Yeah, I should end this here for now. Alright, so, next time, stay tuned for Chapter 2. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing out. And I hope you like the intro to this fic. Welcome back to another chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Last time, Cecil has actually made it to Dissidia, or just arrived there unwillingly for the first time, and he met up with Kuja. And Kuja was fascinated by his prowess even though he hasn't fought him yet, so he decided to test him out. And Kuja won over Cecil, and he actually made an ultimatum with him that they should work for Chaos. But then he changed his mind and they decided to work for themselves instead. So that, Kuja's a narcissist and they should have the upper hand over everybody else because Kuja was always treated so badly. So he finally got his chance. And for some reason, Cecil seemed to be submissive to Kuja as he goes through a lot of corruption and darkness within his heart. So, yeah, like I said, this is a story I came up with about a decade ago, and I should give a quick shout out to 11 Slimeed 11, who actually made this battle theme version, which isn't the DS version, it kinda is, but he had a sound font from Pokemon Black and White. So, very cool stuff, you gotta listen to him. So, let's get this out of the way. Alright, Chapter 2. There was a massive area filled with craters and precipices. A full moon was shining down on the battlefield, and it was known as the Lunar Subterrane, which, if you've played Dissidia Duodecum and the original Dissidia, you should know this. Another lone warrior was leaning up against one of the cliffs with his arms folded. His weapon, the Bloodlance, was stuck into the ground beside him. He couldn't get this new warrior off his mind. Who is he? She said that it was someone I knew. Someone from my childhood. I forgot to italicize that, damn it. Since he was summoned to Dissidia recently, he had no memory. However, after each fight and his first meeting with Cosmos, he knew who he was with one bit at a time. Suddenly he heard a female voice which interrupted him out of his reverie. "Cain, what's wrong?" It was the young summoner from Besaid, Yuna. She was also a warrior of Cosmos who was recently summoned. "Oh, Yuna, I was just thinking about that new warrior Cosmos was talking about," she asked with her face aglow. Even she couldn't wait who he or she was either. "Yeah, she said it was someone I once knew long ago. And wait! Someone's coming!" They hid in a heap behind a cliff and peeked over. Amongst the darkness, they saw two people walking toward them. He could only make out one of the intruders. "It's Kuja!" "Yeah, but who is that?" Yuna pointed to his follower. Sure enough, there was a dark knight following the genome. As he walked slowly, he looked around for any prey. He was on the hunt for whomever Kuja wanted to be obliterated. So, looks like a dark knight. But suddenly, like Furion with the Wild Rose, Cain felt a connection toward the mysterious figure. He had some visions in his mind, working alongside him, but he still didn't know who he was. "Cain, there's something strange about this dark knight. You feel the connection too?" "What? No. I feel something evil inside him. He's not himself." "Is he a warrior of chaos?" "No, it's not that. But if we don't fight him now, he wouldn't come to his senses. The darkness is consuming him. I can feel his hatred growing." "Meaning? We don't even know him." "I think he could be on our side. There's a speck of light inside, but it's very faint. Kuja could be abusing his dark side, and if we fight him, he could be purified." "That's a plan, but we don't know what he's capable of." Thanks, Scrolls. Just then, as Kuja was soaring over the turf, he heard Yuna and Cain talking behind a precipice. "Aha! Looks like we got ourselves some puppets to play with. Oh, wait! I have my own puppet of mayhem. Let us make this show come to a close." As Cecil was searching through the dark, he saw Kuja hovering and followed him, knowing that he must have spotted some fresh meat. "Look! There he is! And it looks like he's powering up. Like a shadow Pokemon in hyper mode, as I would like to call it." Cecil used his darkness as flames surrounded him. His heart was hammering against his chest, his breathing became ravenous, and his energy and perception skyrocketed. "Cain, what's he doing?" Yuna asked, alarmed. Apparently she never dealt with the Dark Knight before, but Cain never faltered. "He's getting ready to fight. I'll take him on. If I fight him, I'll knock him back to his senses. You find someplace safe." "No, I'll assist you. Let's bring him back together." Hesitantly, the dragoon said, "All right, let's go." Kuja watched them prepare, and he said to his minion, "These are your enemies, my puppet. Now, let's see how strong you are. Slaughter them!" Cain stepped in front and drew his bloodlance as Cecil took out his Deathbringer. Through the dark armor, fire was burning in his eyes. His powers had been unleashed. "I will not lose to you, Dark Knight." Cecil didn't respond. Instead, he lunged toward him in full force, with an ear-piercing war cry. "Hurrah!" Unlike his fight with Kuja, Cecil's battle was more intense. He even gained some experience, thus he learned some new skills. Cain used his signature move Jump, and also Gugner. It's unusual. At times when he was in trouble, he called Yuna to temporarily fight his opponent. Her fighting style was using her powerful Aeons Valifor, Ixion, Ifrit, Shiva, and Bahamut. You know, the usual gang. Cecil's assistant was of course Kuja. Since the bard's strength was a little more than Cain's, his attacks packed quite a punch. They each had summons equipped. The Dark Knight used Bahamut, and the Dragoon used Tiamat. At times, when Cecil was in the air, he turned into a paladin. However, he still had the possessed look in his eyes. Cain still had a connection which became stronger, but he still couldn't get any information. There was still hope, though. As a dark knight gains more strength, his energy gets sapped. If he keeps this up, I might... He thought of an idea, and he got it. His plan was working. Sometimes Cecil felt himself weakening, but he became even more vicious. He even used his darkness spell as he made an EX burst, but Kane was still on his feet. On Cecil's last breath, he used his EX burst Dragon's Pride, which is a huge super jump attack. He soared past the clouds where the two twin moons were shining in a clear, crisp sky. Then, as fast as lightning, he descended with his blood lance pointing toward his target. It was his ultimate jump move. And bang! He knocked Cecil down as he plummeted. As he did his victory pose, he stated, "Whatever I start, I finish." No! How could you have failed against this treacherous fool? I'll get you cronies back! That worthless scum is no use to me anyway! As Kuja was storming away and screaming at his own failure, Kane and Yuna rushed to the wounded Dark Knight. "Is he all right?" "Yes, he's just knocked out." As Cecil ignited again, slowly he stood up, wearing the same hatred. As a Dark Knight, no matter how wounded he got, he still had that urge to keep fighting. "We can't let him die like this. He must be stopped." Kane drew his lance again, but Yuna laid a hand on his shoulder and begged, "Wait, please! Just wait!" "What is it?" "It's his aura. I can feel it starting to fade. Just let me talk to him." "Yuna, be careful!" Cecil's hatred rose and he pointed his sword at the summoner as she was trying to talk some sense into him. "Just stop! You'll only make yourself worse," he spoke in monotone. "A Cosmos warrior. I need to..." Ugh. He knelt as his energy started to leave him. Yuna was desperate to save him, but she didn't falter. She walked closer to him and spoke in a calm manner. "Your hatred is consuming you and making you weak. I may not know anything about the Dark Knight, but you should try and let go of your powers. That way you won't have that urge to fight." "My urge to fight? I must..." "You shouldn't talk. You're sapping all your strength. Tell me, what's on your mind? Surely there must be a reason why you're doing this." I can feel the darkness seeping into me. And Kuja, His flames appeared again, but Yuna didn't give up. "Kuja's been using him." "Kuja's been using him. He was exploiting his powers to work for Chaos." "Please, listen to me. You don't have to do this and dwell on this hatred. I think I know how you must be feeling. These Dark Knights, they usually lose themselves when they can't control their powers, letting these feelings of disorder harm them. I know how it feels to have someone betray you and drive you towards madness. I've been there, but I never gave in to my emotions, because I have friends who believe in me." "What's your point?" "My point is, even knowing betrayal, despair, and hatred, you mustn't surrender to them. You're not alone. We're all with you." With that, his flames dissipated, and he took deep breaths to calm himself. Then his hands started to shake. When everything was calm, Kane showed up. "What do you think? Should we take him to go see Cosmos?" "That would be a good idea. Maybe she could help us, and maybe then he can show his true colors. I knew there was some light left in him. He's just afraid to use it." Then she looked at Kane, who had a vacant look. "What's wrong?" "It's this feeling. Something about him seems very familiar, but I can't remember. Maybe we should ask for his name?" He thought out loud. Let's hope he won't be like the Warrior of Light. I hope he at least has some memory left." Suddenly there was a flash of light which illuminated the spot where the Dark Knight was standing. As Yuna and Kanan shielded their eyes, a miraculous thing happened. He turned himself into a paladin again, Only this time he had no feelings of discord. He was growing more weaker by the second, and Cain and Yuna walked to him. "What is your name?" With all his remaining strength, he slowly lifted his head and spoke. "My name is Cecil." Then he fainted, and Cain finally had what he was looking for. "Cecil. His name is Cecil. We have to take him to Cosmos. Hurry, before the mannequins or any of Chaos's cronies will find us. They will definitely want to use him again." "Right!" Yuna smiled and nodded. She and the Dragoon grabbed an arm, and they made their way to Order's sanctuary. Alright, for those of you who haven't known Final Fantasy X, which is like 5% of people on planet Earth, Yuna was referring to the betrayal of Yevon, but mostly Seymour. I hated this guy so much. However, I did love his song. It was quite ideal that Duodecim had it while Yuna or Titus would be fighting the Emperor. And another thing, am I being too brief on the battles? If I am, I'll try and make them more descriptive. If not, that's fine. Well, the next part should be entertaining. Cosmos meets Cecil, and he becomes one of her warriors. However, he's not quite himself just yet. So, until next time, guys, this is the Ekron Writer signing out. Welcome back to another chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Last time, Cain and Yuna have actually been in the lunar subterrane as they heard about a new warrior of Cosmos, or a possible new warrior of Cosmos. And they have just encountered Kuja, as well as a mysterious dark knight who seems to be working for him. Cain wasn't sure if he was exactly a warrior of chaos, but nevertheless, he fought against him and he actually won. And Kuja just retreated like a coward that he is, as well as a narcissist. And Yuna actually assured the Dark Knight that something inside him was consuming him, something dark and corrupt. And she assured Cecil that, as long as she has friends, even though he has been going through so much betrayal, so much corruption, so much darkness in his heart, she always knew that friends were there to comfort her and always be there for her, to support her. And Cecil should feel the same. And it turned out to be Cecil because they asked for his name, and he muttered that. And so, with Cain's memories partially restored, Yuna and Cain actually took Cecil to Order's sanctuary, which is where Cosmos is. So, will he join Cosmos? Let's find out, shall we? Alright, Chapter 3. It was quite a long journey where Cain and Yuna had to take Cecil to. The place itself was pretty peaceful. There was nothing but puddles of cool water which was like 3 inches deep, and in the middle was a small throne. On that throne was the goddess of harmony herself, Cosmos. But she wasn't alone. There was a warrior standing beside her. He seemed to be a bodyguard protecting her from the mannequins, while the others went their separate ways. After a few steps, the 2 travelers stopped in a gaze. "We're here. Let's hope we're not too late. He won't last much longer." They walked toward Cosmos, and the warrior spoke. "Look, Cosmos, it's Cain and Yuna." "And we've brought someone," Cosmos replied in her gentle demeanor. "Yes, and he looks very weak. Cain, Yuna, you may bring this warrior to me." They did, and Yuna greeted her. "Hi, Cosmos. This is Cecil. We saw him as he was traveling with Kuja, although he was a dark knight at the time. We fought him earlier, and he seemed to be overshadowed by his powers. His strength then left him, and I saw something I never saw before. He has a speck of light within himself, and he never recognized it was there. When he became wounded, we decided to bring him here so he won't be used as a tool for chaos. Please, Cosmos, is there anything you can do?" she asked with a hint of anxiety. She looked at him closely and she saw the same speck of light that the summoner saw. Then she thought of the time when she recruited a mysterious fighter. Even he wasn't sure who he was or what the war was about, but thanks to Prish, he was one of her best fighters yet. And you would see it as one of the events in Duodecim, which is pretty good. I just wish it was highlighted more. She wondered if she could do the same. This warrior, I've never seen anything like it. He's very unique. He has the accursed power of darkness, and yet he wields the power of cleansing light. However, in order to fight, he has to learn how to hone both of these powers. This has never happened before. He slowly opened his eyes and moaned. Slowly made out who he was seeing. He'd never seen anything like this. She was a goddess, but yet she's so heartwarming and beautiful. Well, technically she isn't. His vision was blurry, but he could still see her calming aura, and he felt at ease. He then wanted to speak to her, but he was so weak that he only let out a whisper. Cosmos. She looked at him with surprise. He still had some energy left to talk and to stand. His fingers curled and he wanted Yuna and Kane to let him go. Should we let him go? Yes, but be careful. They did, and slowly he stood on his feet, looking at the goddess with awe. Even though he didn't know Chaos, he would prefer Cosmos instead. All that hatred was getting the best of him, but this easiness he felt was definitely the way to go. He walked toward her as the warrior let him pass. Shall we? Yuna snapped out of her reverie. Yeah, sure. Take care of him, Cosmos. She ran off, and the paladin bowed his head. He didn't expect to do this alone. What if she doesn't accept me for what I did? Is she for real? He then remembered Kuja's words about what his skills would mean rather than his looks. You seem to have some doubts, Cecil. He snapped his face back up and listened. There's a special air about you. You may not be aware, but you wield both the dark and the light within you. It may be confusing, but with patience and the proper training, and with the acceptance of who you are, you will prevail. I am unique. She nodded and reached out a hand. Light energy emitted from it, then disappeared, and it began to engulf the paladin in a radiant glow. Hear me, warrior. Use your powers well to end this eternal conflict and bring peace back to the world. Our future depends on it. Join us. As the energy surrounded him, he looked at himself. Then he felt as if his uncertainties have disappeared. He took in this new energy. He opened his eyes while the energy dissipated. He felt himself become whole. He now knew what he had to do. He had a purpose. Proudly, he kneeled, bowed his head, and put his hand over his heart as he declared, Cosmos, Goddess of Harmony, I shall fulfill your wish. I will end this war with all my strength, and to defeat Chaos, the god of discord. It shall be done. Rise, Cecil, for you are now chosen as a warrior of harmony. He did and nodded. At last he was now a part of something, and he was willing to carry on his duty with no regrets. Hooray! He's now with Cosmos! But the story's not over yet. He has some training to do, plus he meets his new comrades. And of course, Kuja is furious. There's still more to come, so until next time, stay tuned. By the way, sorry for how the cover art turned out, which there was an error while I was editing it, but I kind of fixed it now, even though it may look incomplete. So, yeah. Cecil is officially a warrior of harmony working for the goddess of harmony, Cosmos, instead of Chaos. So, let's hope Cecil's training would pay off with the goddess of harmony as well as her fellow warriors. So until next time, guys. Man, I really like the rearrangement in Dissidia from the battle song of the original Final Fantasy. Even though I'm not very crazy about the Warrior of Light, which I call the Puppet of Light, but still, that song is jamming. Welcome back to another chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Last time, there was this short chapter that Cain and Yuna took Cecil to Order's sanctuary, and Cosmos, the goddess of harmony, of course, has just recruited Cecil as one of her fellow warriors to defeat Chaos, the god of discord, and end the eternal conflict. And I kind of find Cecil's origin story to be a lot better than the Puppet of Light, to be honest. Even though it's never explained why Shantoto and Prish were in Dissidia to begin with. Anyway, let's get this chapter going, shall we? And in case any of you are wondering why I played this song, you'll know it's an inclination to the Cecil fighting against the warrior. So here we are, Chapter 4. It took a while for Cecil to take in all the foreign information, what he learned about Cosmos, how he felt. His mind was as foggy as the mist surrounding the Order's sanctuary, and through that he saw a bunch of dark shadowy figures looming towards him. Cosmos recently warned him about Chaos's new threat, the mannequins, and he immediately took out his sword and shield, assuming that they were marching towards him. Even the warrior was too alarmed. However, his sight was more keen than the paladin's, obviously, so he abruptly stopped himself from charging toward the incoming group. He laid a firm hand on Cecil's shoulder in assurance. "Wait! They can't be the mannequins! They pace slower than this." The pair heard some talking amongst the small army, and eventually the fog cleared and revealed themselves. One, who was a brunette with short hair, spoke. "Hey, that's him!" he exclaimed as he pointed admiringly. "Wow! I've never seen anything like it." Another short-haired brunette spoke in a deeper, more sarcastic tone. Oh, who is it? Oh, alright. Oh, Bart. That's what you said about the last so-called warrior we've met. What makes you think we can trust this guy? Oh, come on, Squall. Do you always act this way whenever we meet someone new? Why not give him a chance? Pink-haired soldier responded to the Seed's attitude. She also had the same feelings he did. I don't know. Somehow this guy seems suspicious, like as if he's hiding something. Heh! Heh, that's lightning for ya, an overconfident gun wielder chuckled. Relax. I think we should give him a chance, don't you think? After all, if you were a fighter for Chaos, you would have swapped the floor by now. Are you quite sure, Laguna? Vaughn, a wannabe sky pirate, asked. He looks a little too fancy for his own good. like as if he worked for a kingdom or something. Laguna rubbed his chin in deep thought. Well, technically, yes, but Yuna and Kane said he was all right. The weapon master faced the group and chimed in. We should meet him. Yeah, we'll never know unless we take our chances, Tifa added. Besides, if it's fine with Kane and Yuna, it's fine with me. She then pointed to herself to show her approval. See, Furian's got the right idea. I say we go for it. With that, he led everyone to meet the new recruit. Heh, I'll be glad to see what he can do, the egotistical Jack boasted as he flexed his arms. Cecil watched the gang parade towards him. Who are they? Are they all our other warriors? Yes, they are soldiers of Cosmos. We all protect the peace ruined by the god of discord. Even he has the same minions of his own besides the mannequins, the warrior explained. Cecil nodded in acknowledgement. After a deep breath, he slowly met up with the new champions. But they were broken up as an energetic monkey-like ally ran to him. So you're the new kid on the block, aren't you? As he looked down at his companion, he almost laughed, but he tried to hide it as he embarrassingly said, yes, I am. My name is Cecil. And you are? He jumped around as he introduced himself. I am one of the most well-known skilled warriors of them all. He then pointed at himself with glee. I am the legendary thief Zidane. Cecil stared in shock. A thief? Why would Cosmos recruit a thief? She has her reasons. After all, I can't resist to do a woman a favor. Zidane folded his arms and winked as he smiled. I guess not. He wasn't sure what to say to a thief who flirts a lot. Well, anyways, the rank isn't official yet. You need some training first, and I'm gonna give it to you. It's a rule, you know. All right. He wasn't sure whether he was faking or not, but he felt he needed to take the challenge in order to be worthy. What do I need to do? First, you gotta catch me! As Cecil was about to grab him, Zidane jumped on and off the awestruck paladin's head. He started to chase him all over the terrain, and at times, he almost slipped as he made a sharp turn. As he ran closer to him, the genome jumped ahead. You're too slow! Zidane! He was running out of breath. He tried to make a sudden ambush by cutting him off, but he tripped on his tail instead and fell flat on his chest. The playful primate mocked the new recruit as he stopped on the throne. Nah, 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 you can't catch me. That's enough! At the sudden outburst, Zidane felt sheepish as he twisted his tail. Aw, I was just having fun. Why do you always have to be such a party pooper? Off in the distance, Jack murmured, Well, I guess he's not so tough after all. Furion just smoked. He was getting tired of him putting people down, so he walked toward him and helped him back on his feet. Are you all right? I'm sorry if that knucklehead frustrated you. He's harmless, really. He just wants someone to entertain. I suppose. I'm Furion. Nice to meet you. Come, I'll introduce you to the others. And so he did. Everyone was thrilled on meeting him except Squall and Lightning, who just stood there motionless. Typical soldiers. Cecil and Furion were sitting in an open field just a few miles away from the sanctuary. They were discussing of what Cosmos had discovered. So you possess two distinctive powers, right? Both light and darkness? Yes, that is correct. Cecil reflected when he first used it for Kuja. He still couldn't get over his guilt, nor his fear on using it again. What's wrong? Furion asked, noticing a glaze in his eyes. Cosmos said, in order to prevail, I must use both of them efficiently. How can darkness overcome chaos? All it does is consume me. and cause my mind to deteriorate. Lunith chimed in as if he was eavesdropping. Have you tried not using your darkness? I mean, since it manipulates you when you do use it, what's it worth? Trying to avoid the subject. As if reading his mind, Cecil confirmed the Onionite. No, he's right. I can't use it if I can't control it. I'll just end up hurting myself. I might fall into the fiend's hands again. I think he should learn how I think he should learn how to use it. It's just a tool, like any other new weapon or ability. Learn it, apply it, master it. That's how I became a very skilled... Let's go, Cecil. Warrior! Soon enough, Cosmos's prime champion approached the trio, still deep in thought. Cecil was so overwhelmed of all the choices he had to make. A lot of people were weighing on his shoulders, especially the goddess. He can't possibly let her down. His life depended on it. It's time. She's waiting for you. Get ready. For what? He turned toward him with a stern face. Your training. Then he walked off slowly, waiting for the newbie to catch up. Good luck. You're gonna need it. The Warrior of Light is not an easy adversary. He is highly trained when it comes to combat. No one was ever able to beat him. Cecil shut his eyes and tried to clear his head. I'll do my best. The warrior saw his opponent enter Order's sanctuary. He was waiting patiently beside Cosmos. He was quite surprised that it took Cecil 5 minutes to prepare himself for a match. Usually other fighters would be too nervous in bouting with the superior, and thus it would take as long as half an hour. Determined, Cecil stood before him. Warrior looked at Cosmos for permission. She nodded. They stood almost neck to neck in height. Neither of them were backing down. Let's do this fight. Here and now. We shall. They both drew their blades and the battle commenced. The warrior ran toward Cecil, but the paladin used a quicker way by jumping toward him. He nearly whacked him with his sword. The warrior knew his enemies were always vulnerable after an attack, so he used the shining wave to maul him from a great distance. The attack was swift, but Cecil was able to dodge it in time. Cecil saw his chance and lunged toward him. He made contact and sent him to the air. He chased him, powered up his sword, and swung it. Unfortunately, there was nothing but thin air. Surprised by his evasion, the warrior gathered energy in his blade and released it with all his might, knocking the paladin down. With a crashing thud, he landed on his back. He reeled from the pain, but he was not done. The warrior charged, Cecil jumped, and he used his Saint's Fall move, which was slow and missed his target. Predictable! The paladin slashed downward, and the warrior evaded it with ease. Then he used his shining wave again, this time hitting his target. He knocked him a few yards away, but Cecil regained himself and landed on his feet. He forced himself forward, bumping into the warrior's shield, which made the challenger waver. You're mine! He thrust his sword toward Cecil's chest, but his belly lurched back. Then his shield glowed in a golden aura and shot out a ray of light. Shine! That pushed Cecil away, but he skidded to a stop before he toppled over. Just then he transformed into a dark knight, increasing his strength and speed. He couldn't stand the humiliation of losing again, especially against Cosmos's best combatant. Can you blame him? I've had enough! The warrior froze at the sight of him. How could he possibly change sides instantly? Cosmos was serious about him. Cecil bashed him directly in the gut, throwing him back. He rolled and shook his head to clear the dizziness. Cecil charged at him again, but he used his shield to block the onslaught. Shield of Light shimmered and released a second time, missing him. Cecil's body emanated dark energy and it thrust it out into a wall of dark flames, injuring the warrior. His confidence grew. So did his viciousness. He used his Soul Eater to drain some of the warrior's stamina, making him weak, but he didn't give up. He flipped and used a hand to control himself from rolling out of control. Cecil, now as a paladin, soared with his sword facing down. The warrior made contact with his blade, resulting the field to be engulfed in light. Both tried to push the other away and make him stagger. They were equal in strength, but the warrior didn't hesitate. He tripped Cecil and attempted to stab him with his rune saber. Cecil leapt and flipped a few yards back. The warrior chased him with a strong persistence, and Cecil had an idea. Cecil stood still as the warrior closed in fast on him. As he was a few feet away, Cecil crossed his sword and shield. When he did, the warrior was temporarily blinded by the light. After a couple seconds, he could see. Incomprehensible! You ran away! The warrior's light looked all around, still no sign of Cecil. After a few minutes, he sheathed his weapons, but then... Surprise! Cecil, as a dark knight, stabbed the warrior as far as his Deathbringer could go. Off guard, he attacked him from behind. Then the warrior fainted. Still having his negative emotions, Cecil did the unthinkable. He raised his sword to deliver the kill. Cosmos begged for him to stop. No! You mustn't slay him! He's our only hope for this war! He shall perish! Cecil, stop! Furion ran to him and grabbed his arms, pushing them back. You can't be doing this! He retaliated by punching him using the back of his blade. Furion held his chest in agony, and as he was about to finish him off, he held his head. He sunk to his knees and hollered to fight his dark impulses. He couldn't possibly be an official Cosmos warrior if he was planning to kill one of them. Then he remembered what Eunice said to him at the subterrane. You're not alone. Please wait! You don't have to do this! I've suffered through betrayal and hatred before, but I didn't give in to my emotions because I had friends who supported me. As he started to calm himself, he realized the summoner was telling the truth. Cecil did have friends now, some indifferent and more annoying than others. But nevertheless, they were all fighting for the same cause, to end the eternal conflict, never to increase loathing amongst themselves. Slowly but surely, he changed back into a paladin. He was hyperventilating from how much stress and fatigue he had to endure. I cannot keep this up. Indeed, he couldn't, because next time he probably wouldn't be able to stop himself. I hope I improved on the fight scenes somewhat, and I hope I didn't create any character bashing. I'm not really a huge fan of the warriors, so yeah. Yeah, and that's it. Stay tuned for Chapter 5. Until then, this is the Ekron Writer signing out. Welcome back to another chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Last time, Cecil Harvey has dealt with a spar in dealing with the Warrior of Light, also known as the Puppet of Light, which is my pet name for him. And Cecil actually won, but he wasn't able to hold back his dark impulses. But before that, he was able to meet the Cosmos Warriors, and he was able to befriend Furion most of all. And Lunith was, aka the Onion Knight, was like, why don't you not use your dark powers? As if that's gonna work. I mean, Vaughn advised Tara not to use her powers so she won't lose control. Wrong. If it doesn't work for Tara, it's not gonna work for Cecil either, right? So, with both of his powers of dark and light, he was able to defeat the Warrior of Light. But he was barely able to keep his dark emotions back. So, wonder how they would think of him now. Well, let's find out. Alright, Chapter 5. Night fell over the continent. The warriors of Harmony were slumbering on a grassy field, except Lightning and Squall. Every group was given a turn to stand watch in case either Chaos's minions or the mannequins tend to sneak up on them. They were all close to the Order's sanctuary, which was shining like a beacon amongst the darkness. It had been a long day, and Cecil slept almost instantly as his comrades settled down for the night. After the sparring match with the Warrior of Light, he attempted to kill him, and Furion in his anger. As a result, Lightning said that he should either be put into exile or be perished by her own hands. In his defense, though highly unorthodox, Cosmo suggested that he would be put under probation until Cecil could learn how to control his Dark Knight abilities. As very close friends to him, King, Yuna, and Furion volunteered, so his punishment wouldn't be as unsettling and gruesome as it would have been. He remorsed what he'd done, and he wished he would master his newfound skills. His body began to tremble, his breathing became unsteady, and his eyes were fluttering as fast as sylph wings. He found himself climbing up a long, dark staircase. The temperature was stifling, and all around him everything was destroyed, like as if he was in a post-apocalyptic world. Finally, after an exhausting ascent, which was like an eternity, he reached the top of a small summit. He was bent and panting heavily. Sweat drenched his skin and his armor. By the time he got his strength back, he looked up and saw a massive throne ahead of him, unlike Cosmos's. This one was covered in skulls, and sitting on it was the sum of all fears. He was an enormous demon with an elongated tail, red glowing eyes, 3 sets of horns, 4 strong arms, satanic wings, and an evil grin showing his long shiny fangs. He gazed upon this new horrific figure. He never felt nor saw anyone so maniacal and evil. Was he the one responsible for recruiting the mannequins and starting the eternal conflict? Chaos? His body began to shake, his heart raced, and he felt frozen. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do as he saw Chaos looking back at him. He folded his arms and muttered a deep laugh. When Cecil heard his voice, it felt like as if a knife stabbed him in the chest. Then a cold breeze flew from behind. He frantically looked, but there was nothing but emptiness, and he braced for the worst. The Chaos didn't move. Slowly he turned back. Cosmos! His cry was caught in his throat as he saw the deity stand before her nemesis. Cosmos! At last we meet. Chaos paused and looked at Cecil. Your friend is about to witness the true meaning of discord. Cecil widened his eyes. Then Cosmos spoke defensively, something the Paladin has never heard before. He's not yours to take. He's proven himself as a warrior of light. Chaos didn't flinch. He spoke calmly. So, You refuse to relinquish him. Very well. I'll have no choice but to extinguish it. He shall be a valuable recruit since he still has darkness in his heart. For now it's dormant, but when awakened, we'll have the advantage in this conflict. Cecil gripped his sword, waiting for the first strike. He can't lose Cosmos and all that he was fighting for. It seems he is resistant. I shall give him a little persuasion. When he loses the light, he shall serve within my ranks. Cosmos remembered fearfully that he had just chosen 3 other warriors, a soldier, an Esprican, and a blitzer. Besides Titus, they didn't seem to work for him willingly. If he takes advantage of Cecil... She sadly looked toward him. She saw him running toward her and stopped. Chaos's gaze paralyzed him. The weight was so unbearable for him to muster. The sky began to shift and there was an ominous roar, as if coming from an ancient dragon. Then the goddess was engulfed in a huge wall of flames. "No! Cosmos!" he cried as he watched in horror. In a few moments she was gone, leaving a few fireflies behind. His hopes, his spirit, and his heart were crushed by this malevolent act. He struggled to stand, but Chaos's hold was still in effect. The god of discord slowly rose and walked over to him. The helpless paladin rose his head. "She would have been spared if you wouldn't have intervened. I won't let you get away with this. I admire your perseverance and your strength. You shall join me as my pawn in this eternal conflict." "I will not serve you. The light's still with me. You can never enslave me to do your dirty work." "Then we shall see. Now, taste the true power of discord. Let yourself be reinstated to the board." Chaos released Cecil and he was holding his head in agony. Little did he know, Chaos was holding a small dark crystal in one of his palms. It began to shimmer. The darkness was engulfing him both in body and mind. He fought with everything he had, but the thrall was too strong. Apparently, the dark crystals are used for the Chaos Warriors as a source of power. He was so potent and influential that Cosmos' light couldn't save him. Cecil awoke with a startle. Breathed heavily as he looked at his surroundings. The dream was so surreal that he almost forgotten where he was, outside of Order's sanctuary. He calmed himself, realizing that his dream nemesis was nowhere to be seen. Only one thing was certain: the conflict was still going on. He reminisced when he met his newfound friends and how much they meant to him. He could never give up the bonds he had, even his duties for Cosmos. She gave him the light, and he decided to use it to end this conflict. And in order to do that, he was determined to defeat Chaos directly, alone. From what he just witnessed, he can't let his friends have the same fate, or be killed. Slowly, he stood up from his resting area and left the group. He transformed into a dark knight to blend into the environment, so the other warriors wouldn't see him sneak out. They didn't. Before he stepped into unknown territory, he sadly looked back at his friends. His mind was focused on that objective, but his heart was telling him that he may never return. It was a sacrifice he had to make. He changed into a paladin before the negativity became too much for him to bear. This is a fight. For me. And for me alone. After these words, he left without a sound. During his long travels, he eventually found what looked like a small shrine. It seems the entire place was in shambles, like as if someone raided it. Cecil hesitated in front of the wreck. He wondered if there were any survivors. He looked under every piece of rubble. There were no signs of anyone, living or dead, not even a mannequin. A strange creature with white fur, a red pom-pom on its head, and a pair of bat wings hovered over the curious warrior. It looked like a hybrid between a kitten and a piglet. Couldn't really fly, but its wings and pom-pom could make it hover at least. "Hail, traveler! You must have gone a long way, Kupo." Cecil stopped looking and turned to see the creature speaking to him. "What? Who are you?" It smiled. "Ah, sorry I startled you, Kupo. Forgive me for my rudeness. I'm known as a Moogle, Kupo. I live around these parts, you know. And this is my home, Kupo." Cecil stood up and replied bashfully, "Pleased to meet you. I'm Cecil. I don't necessarily live here, but I was summoned by Cosmos, the goddess of harmony. I'm on a mission to end the conflict and to defeat chaos." "So I see. You are quite the valiant type, though you seem kinder than you look, Kupo. But unlike you, I was never summoned." "Then how did you get here? Do you even fight?" "Actually, I don't take any sides, Kupo. Instead, I sell a lot of different things to people on their journeys. I give them armor, weapons, summon stones, sundries, you name it, Kupo." "Wow. Yeah, they don't always come cheap, Kupo." "I see. But hey, I tell you what, you've come so far. I'll let you rest here for free. You seem friendly enough. Unlike those other warriors that roam around here, Kupo." "That's very nice of you. Thank you, Moogle." "My pleasure, Cecil. Here, you can sleep in this small ledge. It provides shade and makes a good hideout. No one could find you here, Kupo." Its paw pointing to the little ledge of stone. He rested his body on it and used his cape as a blanket. He couldn't believe how smooth it was, though he was pretty exhausted. He slept almost instantly. The next day the sun peeked over the horizon. The air was pretty warm, though there was a slight chill. Cecil's eyes fluttered, then opened gradually. His vision started to clear, and he realized he was still out in the open fields and not at the lush border of Order Sanctuary. He was this closer to finding and defeating chaos. "Good morning, Cecil, Kupo." "Oh, morning, Moogle." Oh. His face dropped as he rubbed his eyes. "Hope you slept well, Kupo. You got a long fight ahead of you." "Yes, I'm still determined to end this war, and I do want anyone, and I do not want, I do not want any of my friends to suffer no longer. Not even Cosmos." Dang errors. He was surprised how well he slept last night. He didn't have one nightmare. In fact, his slumber was dreamless. The paladin thanked the Moogle for his hospitality, and he hoped he would visit its small store again. "You're always welcome, but make sure you always have some gil on you, Kupo." "All right, I'll see you soon, Moogle. Hopefully, if I somehow survive after dealing with the god of discord. I'll probably bring my friends with me to meet you." "Sure, I always like meeting new friends. Good luck in ending conflict. I'm sure your homeworld depends on it." Cecil nodded with a serious expression. "I swear it. Thanks again, Moogle." Moogle perched on another stone and looked onward to where Cecil was heading. Just before he entered the nearby gateway, Cecil stopped. How did the Moogle know about my homeworld? Perhaps he has one as well. He then shrugged and entered new territory, more focused and as willful as ever. "I've decided to add a Moogle to this story. It could possibly be Sid the Lufane. Maybe it was him all along, serving equipment and items to all the other warriors. It's true, the Moogles are mostly neutral, though it'd be interesting if it was just one. I haven't beaten Confessions of the Creator, unfortunately. Still, I feel sorry for the guy since he has to stay as a Moogle to avoid detection. Plus, I hope the nightmare was interesting enough." It does foretell the death of Cosmos, as well as the source of Cecil's unwavering determination. And that's it, guys. That's chapter 5 for you. So, will Cecil Harvey be successful in finding chaos and ending the eternal conflict? Well, find out next time. One of the most epic songs in Final Fantasy IV ever. I always loved Inside the Giant. Welcome back to another chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. Last time, Cecil Harvey has actually left Order's Sanctuary in order to go to the Edge of Madness and face chaos there, after having that gruesome, terrifying nightmare in which he witnessed Cosmos' death, and as well as brainwashing of him utilizing a dark crystal. And in order to face chaos, he has to do it by himself, so he wouldn't harm his friends in the process, whether it be by his own hands or Chaos's. So, best of luck to him. Alright, Chapter 6. I own nothing. The city of characters and stages belong to their respective owners, except maybe this new stage that is featured here. And I desperately wish it would be in the next Dissidia at least. I don't know why those previous Dissidia games never came up with this idea. You'll see. Cecil somehow found himself in a colossal area. It consisted a lot of machinery and clockwork. There were also some pipes on numerous walls. And far ahead, there was a massive window overlooking the landscape of the lunar subterrane. He realized he was inside some sort of a mechanical giant. He was quite fascinated about this place. Where did it come from? What is this place? His curiosity was interrupted by a sudden lurch. His heart began to race. His eyes became sharper as he looked around the premises, and his throat felt tight. He started to feel very uneasy of what he was observing. Someone's here. I can feel it. This dark energy. surging through me. Could it be chaos? One of his fiends. He immediately grabbed his sword and looked around. Then a deep voice boomed. He at first thought he was speaking in his mind, but then he saw an enormous man clad in dark armor. At last you've arrived. Hold on. You're one of Chaos's minions, aren't you? Fear not. I do not wish to harm you, Golbez spoke calmly. Cecil. You know who I am? Indeed. I've been watching you since you first came here. Chaos spy? Who is he? What does he want? You were summoned here by the two gods, who've been wrathing in this war for nearly an eternity. Like the struggle itself, you deal with a more personal conflict. The light and darkness rage on within you, seeing which is more dominant. What are you trying to tell me? Are you going to enslave me to join Chaos? What is it that you know? Are you hiding something beneath that accursed armor? He couldn't resist to fight him any longer. So gallant, yet so fragile. It'd be a great shame to lose a fine warrior, even if he happens to be my younger brother. Cecil gripped his blade. His body was heating up with rage. I don't care how you're related to me. You're a pawn of chaos, and you must be defeated. Admirable, but foolish. Even he knew about Cecil's motivations in ending the conflict. Cecil lunged toward him, and Golbez raised his hands as a huge barrier of electricity shot out toward him. The pain stung throughout his body. His eyes began to burn as he was pinned to the ground. He became immobilized and powerless, until something awoke inside him. His dark powers were taking effect. Among the stress, he managed to open his menacing eyes and grit his teeth. He then began to transform into a dark knight once again as he broke through, disabling the barrier. Golbez was astonished of what he could do. Chaos and Cosmos were right about him. He was truly unique, unlike the other warriors who have only either chosen evil or benevolence. He has both. Cecil swiped his sword, but Golbez jumped out of the way. He was strong and fast, but not as powerful as him. Golbez raised his palms, and two small nodes and a big one appeared. A volley of red lasers shot out. Cecil dodged them and used his blade to knock them away, his eyes still fixed on his enemy. He dashed toward the warlock, but he blocked his attack, making the Dark Knight vulnerable. He conjured a circle of electricity beneath Cecil and launched him upward in a blast of lightning, stunning and damaging him. Nightfall. I always hated that move. While he was in the air, Cecil changed into a paladin and charged toward him with his sword pointing out. As he soared, Golbez was caught in the onslaught. He was raised for a few seconds and slammed into the ground. The saints fall. Golbez retaliated by teleporting behind the paladin. He was caught off guard before he fired electricity beams to shock him. They knocked him back and the pipes broke. They were emitting a toxic gas causing Cecil to choke. He avoided Golbez's next attack, relieved that his lungs received clean air. Just then the place began to shake, realizing that the giant was beginning to move. Cecil's hatred began to grow as he charged up. All that abuse was igniting his heart. Dark energy surrounded him and he released it to Golbez. He tried to push it back, but it was strong enough to knock him against another group of pipes. This time they released flames. He immediately turned away after they burned his armor. Cecil whacked Golbez, sending him to the air. He turned into a paladin again and missed as he tried to stab him. The moving sensation stopped and everything became still. Golbez shed out lasers again, and so did Cecil with radiant blue ones. And Searchlight. They made contact, repelling each other. They broke numerous pipes, releasing ice and strong gusts of wind. They were stunned for a moment since all of the elemental contents have been exposed, making the turf more perilous. The pipe's contents started to mix, causing various ailments. Golbez teleported again. This time Cecil was ready. He used his Soul Eater as he immediately changed back to his loathsome self. The blade pierced through Golbez's armor, and Cecil nearly sapped all his energy. When Golbez managed to push it away, Cecil smacked him with it. As a paladin, for a second, the warlock was dazed, but he shook it off. After the last strike, Cecil hesitated and somehow no longer had the urge to fight. What was going through his mind, he had no idea. Golbez stopped as well. He, however, understood why his brother halted. "You are strong, but why do you hesitate? Do you not wish to rid of a pawn for the god of discord?" Cecil could barely find the words he wanted to say. "I'm not sure. I felt something as I was fighting you. You seem to have dealt with darkness the same way. You too was involved in a dilemma, yet you chose this path because—" "I was weak. We were brothers, but we both shared the same fate. All my life I treaded this malicious path, and my hatred for you began to grow. We both lost our parents, and I was being spoken to by a certain deity. I've been living in the shadows since I abandoned you." Cecil couldn't believe it. He figured that Golbez shared his pain with him, but deserting him the way he did, he still felt no rage, just pity. "You were driven to malice when we lost our elders. Then you were being manipulated like a helpless marionette. You didn't make a choice. He chose you." "But you can," Golbez spoke calmly. He at last melted the ice. "What?" "Unlike myself, you walked the path you've chosen. You started out with a tainted soul as a dark knight, yet your heart was still pure. You've done some benevolent deeds. However, you remorsed and were very pensive about your superior. The darkness wasn't consuming you until you were first summoned here. Then, the small flicker of light grown, and you've gained phenomenal strength as a paladin. Thus, you might have forgotten how you embraced it, and Chaos and Kuja are still taking advantage of it." "What are you implying?" "Whatever is battling inside you, you'll always have a choice." "I did make a choice. I chose Cosmos. Why do I still wield this cursed power inside me?" "It's who you are. You are desperate to vanquish the dark, but no one is either black nor white. Unless if we're destined to. You have a strong will, and you must use it to end this conflict. True, darkness may not conquer pure evil, but if used with light, you can be unstoppable. A body of dark with a heart of light is your chance to victory. If you can accept it and have faith in who you are, you will prevail." "That's what Cosmos said." He was about to say something, but Golbez disappeared without a trace. His heart sunk as he hung his head. For the first time, he began to make a strong bond with his own enemy. Beneath that armor, his soul is fragile, much like his. Brother, do not be like me." He couldn't tell if he heard Golbez out loud or in his mind, but with a new determination, he gazed outside and spoke. "I won't. I'll defeat Chaos and win this. For both of us." Is there more to that? Oh yeah. Family. The bond between brothers. That is the sword that defends our empire. I pray that that sword stays strong. And from Prince of Persia, believe it or not. I was so infuriated that Duodecim did not include another exclusive stage for Final Fantasy IV. 'Cause, he used a lame one from 6 inside the train, which leaves, like, barely any room. So I made one up, representing the Giant of Babel. While I had a dilemma for that place or Mount Ordeals, I decided to pick this one. It has an awesome theme and it has a stage hazard similar to Kafka's Tower, only it isn't just steam. Or rather, the pipes are random since they shoot out elements from the four archfiends, which Cecil faced inside the giant before taking down its central computer unit. As for Chaos's dark crystals, every warrior has one. It'll be explained later on why they did. But apparently Chaos took one step ahead before Cosmos. At least his crystals are taking effect more than hers. Never liked the plot of Duodecim. She wasn't able to make crystals of her own until the 13th cycle. So, too little too late, I suppose. Gulbez and Cecil seem to have reconciled with their differences for the moment. They no longer see each other as enemies, but brothers in blood. And they are. They're both Lunarians and have similar destinies. If you played Final Fantasy IV, you would know. All his life, the Warlock was always toyed with by Zemus and now Chaos. He experiences it all over again, and he finds hope in Cecil that they'll both see the light when the war is over. Yes, this part does ignore Cecil's encounter with Gulbez and Duodecim during Kane's story, but hey, it's non-canon. Even though I wish it was canon. Thanks for reading, guys. I hope I didn't slip away too much. Until then, see you all next time. So, believe it or not, we're on our way to the final chapter. Very short story, I gotta say, pretty fast. So stay tuned for that, guys. guys, this is the Ekron Writer here, welcoming you to the final chapter of Body of Dark, Heart of Light. And you can tell with the song I just played, things are really gonna start to go down. Cause you know with Kuja's theme, he doesn't mess around. Alright, last time. Cecil has just encountered his brother Golbez for the first time, inside a special section in Dissidia, known as the Giant of Babel, where the pipes, if broken, release content resembling, poison, ice, fire, gusts of wind from each of the four archfiends. Which, if you played Final Fantasy IV, you should know this. So, Golbez has actually reasoned with Cecil because somehow he hesitated on killing him, as he noticed there was something peculiar about them. And, well, they turned out to be brothers, actually, and they're kind of dealing with the same fate. They were summoned to Dissidia against their own wills, and they tend to have a personal battle between dark and light, which with Golbez, it's darkness consuming his heart because he doesn't know light. Thus he has no hope in retrieving it. But he actually has hope with his brother Cecil because he still has a pure heart as long as he doesn't get consumed by the darkness too much. He has hope because he can balance the two and hopefully bring hope to other warriors to end this eternal conflict between Cosmos and Chaos. But there is still Kuja, though. And Kuja was the one manipulating Cecil to begin with before Chaos. So, good luck, Cecil. Alright, we're on the final chapter, Chapter 7. Well, everyone, we're finally here. We went through 6 enduring chapters. Thank you all so much for following this story and waiting very patiently. But now, we're ready to rock and roll. We finally made it to the last chapter. I promise you all that this final segment will knock your socks off and reveal the true purpose of Chaos's dark crystal in Cecil's nightmare. But enough small talk. Let's finish this. Peace is but a shadow of death, desperate to forget its painful past. He was standing in the center of a massive and magnificent crystallized platform. Surrounding it were other platforms shaded orange, pink, white, and even purple. Rocky ledges formed the underbelly, hovering over a thick, misty pit. He pensively looked up at the gloomy gray sky while a crystal was shown in a gigantic rotating ring and shining its eerie light. The place was known as the Crystal World, and to some as the Plane of Death. And while the moon as a fickle shines blue, by dawn it'll turn to a scarlet hue, as chaos reigns over this pitiful, fragile world. Kuja looked at a crystal he held in his hands. He'd been ambitiously waiting for his puppet to show. He knew this would be the moment for Cecil to fall into discord and wreak havoc once more. Kuja! Just then Cecil faced him as determined as ever. Well, well, another magnificent act, I presume. I will defeat Chaos, and I'm here to destroy you. The genome still showed a straight face. Defeat Chaos, you say? He is the god of discord. He shall never be defeated by the sniveling likes of you. But rather than an enemy, you shall become his pawn of ultimate destruction. What? No. It was just what he feared and saw in his dream. Chaos was holding a dark crystal which took control of him. Now Kuja had the same one. Even though no one could see it, Cecil felt its dark energy emitting from it, seeping into his soul. The curtains have closed and doused the light. Now they rise to this new fate. Cecil's time is already over. Cecil sunk to his knees, feeling as numb and as dazed as before. He thought he was only being manipulated by his own urges when turned into a dark knight, but that particular crystal seemed to have intensified the effect. Your feeble brother shared the same fate. He lost his will to the dark abyss of malice. But you know what they say. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And now you shall join him as brothers in crimson blood. His body began to shiver, only this time it was pure rage rather than fear. His eyes became dead, but menacing, and he gritted his teeth as he drank the anguish. He became stronger, more bold, and he cared for nothing as his heart was stirred with hatred, malice, and power. Just then, Cain, Furion, and Yuna saw him change, only a few feet away from the battlefield. Everyone became shocked that he was rampaging again. Then he heard chaos echoing in his mind. The light no longer shines within you. Succumb to the darkness and taste true discord. You serve me. His body rapidly changed into the menacing dark knight that Chaos and Kuja longed for. He let out a war cry which was almost similar to a dragon's. I wish I had the sound effect for that. Cecil, no! Yuna gasped at the sight of his metamorphosis. Kuja's with him! We have to make plans to stop him! But Furion wasted no time. He immediately shoved past his teammates and leapt into the air, drawing a light arrow. Furion! Yuna tried to go after him and Cecil, but Cain held her back. The arrow was shot, but it missed its target just by a hair. It whizzed past Kuja like it was only a puny fly. He grinned at Furion's effort. You're so foolish trying to bring this act to a screeching halt. Ironically, this is only the prelude. What are you doing to him? Oh, it's already been done. Graciously pointed at Cecil, who had just completed his transformation. The malicious knight pointed his Deathbringer directly at his victim. No, you can't! His face grew pale as he started to back away. He was shocked at what he had become. How can he turn on me like this? Your master is here, pawn. He was only the intermission last time. Now he just became the overture. Let the show commence once more with your requiem of death. Take him out! He snarled and leapt toward the unsuspecting weapon master. He instantly put up his Ragnarok to block the blow. The clang rang in both of their ears. Neither of them were backing down. They parted, and Furion tossed out his electric whip. But Cecil was too quick, slicing it in two. He lunged at him again, then Furion jumped up and casted Blizzard. 3 chunks of ice descended toward him. Normally, the frigid projectiles would have smacked the opponent to the ground, but the Dark Knight bashed right through them. With the ice shattered, he landed on a crystal pillar. Cecil soared and Furion shot another light arrow, missing his target. He persisted a few more times, but Cecil dodged them with ease. He wound up behind him and knocked him down toward the hard rocky terrain below. Stunned by the pain in his betrayal, he could barely stand up. Cecil used his finishing move. He stabbed through Furion's chest and drained his energy until he fell. In the process, Furion saw a glimpse of Cecil's malice beneath the dark armor. He then remembered what Eunice said. Is there still hope? Is there still hope? Can Cecil break out of the darkness and retrieve the light again? He doubted it as his own light began to shed. He fell back when the process was done. He gazed through his armor and saw sapphire, though evil eyes, and said on his last breath, Chaos shall never rule this world. It must strive like the wild rose, and never be wedded. Don't fail, Cosmos. Never let the darkness destroy the Cecil in you. Blackened out and became very still. Furion! We should rid of him. Let's go! Cain led the way as they ran to their fallen comrade. Instead of feeling remorse, he became more powerful. After absorbing Therian's life into him, Cecil emitted a roar of triumph. Though something was toggling his mind. He held his head as he had voices and images flashing before his eyes. Of Cosmos, Yuna, his brother. Hear me, warrior. You are unique. A lot of people would be fooled by a person's looks. Let go of your powers. With patience and acceptance of who you are, you shall prevail. How can darkness overcome chaos? Taste the power of discord. He's proven himself as a warrior of light. I have friends who believe in me. You won't you won't have the urge to fight. You're not alone. He felt his mind was beginning to shatter. Something deep within his heart started to stir and course through his soul. The vow with his friends helped him from being inept. His strength was driven by their support along with the light both he and Cosmos possessed. It was that relaxation that Cecil finally broke free. As he cleared his mind and held on to the truth, he transformed into the glorious paladin again. His eyes returned to their normal shade and the cries stopped. Flabbergasted and enraged, Kuja held weakly onto the dark crystal. No! Impossible! How can the madness within be broken? Cecil stood up slowly and said, Something that I learned from my trials. The mind may be tainted by evil means, but as long as the heart remains, nothing can change a person's will. I have friends who believe in me. They're the guidance and strength that I need. And where would those friends come from, pet? Your memories? Your putrid life? You had none since you got here. Memories are remnants of farce play of the mind. They are nothing but fragments of the demented soul, and friends are no better. Friends are only facades who are used to cover their own weaknesses, and shed nothing but nauseating pity. You're wrong! The meanings of friendship and memories are what keeps us together, to keep fighting, and to hold to something we protect. Something to protect? That fragile empty shell? Such useless recklessness. Serve me in chaos and death instead! The dark crystal emitted dark energy again, leaving Cecil helpless upon its spell. He held on to fight it as he remembered what everyone taught him. Even though he can remember nothing in his home world, he still has the lessons he learned here. Friendship, courage, fortitude, virtue, they were all there. While Cecil was paralyzed, Kuja gathered magic energy and formed it into a gigantic fiery sphere. It was known as one of his powerful moves, the Flare Star. As it grew bigger and brighter, he eventually tossed it towards Cecil. Unable to move, he can only brace for the worst and pray to survive it. He can't possibly let his friends down. He can't let Cosmos down. In a flash of light, the central crystal platform shattered. The magnitude tossed Cecil to the ground below. However, he was down, but not out yet. He barely rose and held his chest in excruciating pain. He wished he would have been dead so he wouldn't suffer through it. Then, blue light imbued him. It began to sparkle just as he felt very warm. No pain whatsoever. Finally learned how to cure himself. His stupefaction didn't last, as he still had a battle to finish against Kuja in his trance. Then he realized his true potential. I'm a paladin. I am a dark knight. In order to become one with myself and my nemesis, I shall become two. He stood up with a new pride he never had before. I must accept who I am. Utilizing the dark crystal's prowess, he transformed into a dark knight, this time willingly. and immediately afterward he used his dark flame directly at it, shattering it into smithereens. Dark Wave! The stunned genome looked down at his empty hand. This can't be happening! Chaos said that these crystals could give his messengers unstoppable prowess that not even Cosmos could match. Made by Shinryu himself, to manipulate the weak and prevent disappearance upon defeat. How could it possibly fail? His hands clenched into menacing, shaking fists. Upon his inexperience and rage, he declared as he descended, "That's it! Time to put an end to this!" He gathered more energy as Cecil looked up at his opponent. With his newfound strength, he soared up and stood next to Kuja. The weak lose their freedom and will to the strong. Such is the way of the strong. And it's the providence of nature that only the strong can survive. That is why I needed this unfathomable strength. Cecil realized that Kuja was one of the more weak and competent ones. As an experimentation, Chaos gave Kuja the dark crystal, and they both knew who to use it on to have an advantage in the eternal conflict. However, his plan failed. Now Kuja wants to destroy Cecil in battle to make him suffer and fall into the dark abyss. The moon is but a fickle calling to the darkness. Your eloquence is misplaced, and I shall obtain victory! While Trance Kuja charged straight to Cecil as a Dark Knight, he used his gravity ball to hammer him to the ground. Because he was in trance, the genome had more immense power, much like Cecil with the dark crystal. Since it was now gone, he had the advantage instead. Kuja jumped and slammed with his remote flare, soaring Cecil into the air. He then charged up and attacked him head-on with his strike energy. Cecil regained his inner strength and turned him into a paladin. He aimed an energy orb straight at him and performed some aerial slices before he slammed Kuja with his paladin force. That is one of the most awesome moves from Cecil, especially as a paladin. I always liked that move. This is how a honing attack should be done, by the way. Better than Sonic's in 06. Mist burst apart as Kuja soared again, nearly knocking Cecil. He avoided it and landed on the ground, turning into a Dark Knight once more. He attempted to slam Kuja with his gravity ball, which missed. Then he used his dark flames as projectiles to attack him from a distance. They hit Kuja on contact, but he immediately shook them off and countered with Flare Star. He got caught in it, which made him descend to the unforgiving terrain. He instantly changed into a paladin, which made him land gently. He noticed that in this form, his attacks were quicker, versatile, and powerful. He bashed through the crystal pillars and closed in on the genome. They both faltered after they connected simultaneously. Kuja hurriedly used Force Symphony. Cecil avoided it, spun, and slashed him using radiant wings. To the sky! Fleeting blade! He then chased him as he used Searchlight. Moon transfix you! Which Kuja blocked with his own power. He then used Seraphic Star, which critically wounded him and sent him to the ground, panting. Strength was leaving him, and he knew he had to end this fight. Fast. Deep within his soul, he heard his friends' voices again. We're here for you, Cecil. You are our last hope. You can do it. Save us. We believe in you. Keep fighting. End this conflict for everyone. As he heard the End this conflict for everyone. As he heard the voice from Cosmos, he instantly felt warm inside. Just then a golden aura surrounded him, and he felt his energy increase within each minute. Kind of like the dark crystal's influence, but less poisonous and more soothing. My allies are with me. I know my course. Kuja used Snatch Blow, causing them to go into a chase. They each charged up their weapons and magic, but they just kept missing. Eventually, Cecil was able to make Kuja more vulnerable after each hit. Then he charged his blade and sent Kuja flying and making the world dissolve. That's right, it's his EX burst. Everything went black, and only Cecil and Kuja were seen in the empty void. His aura shone brighter as he gathered energy. This will seal it! The moon leads me! For the love of his friends and for the goddess of harmony, his hands formed a cross. Then his Deathbringer and Excalibur appeared, and he grabbed them both. He switched into a dark knight which had the same amount of malicious energy as it did before. He charged and hit Kuja directly and fired some orbs. Light and darkness cast aloft! He instantly changed back and performed 2 slashes which made a cross. And after that light show, Kuja floated in the air for a few seconds. He was surrounded in the same golden aura until the battlefield returned to normal. Then he descended toward the gigantic center pillar and yelled at the top of his lungs, "No!" Everything was back the way before the battle started, and Cecil slowly descended next to Kuja, who turned back into his normal form. Ugh, dang scrolls. Ugh. He was soon panting heavily in a kneeling position as dark waves emitted from him. Cecil noticed that it was Kuja who was about to disappear, much like all the mannequins he had fought during his journey. Somehow he only felt pity for him. No! Why should the world exist without me? That cannot be fair. If I die, then so would all of you. The somber paladin sadly closed his eyes. I understand that some must live and others must die. A friend of mine knew what it meant. He made that sacrifice once. How can this be? I am the angel of death. I'm the bringer of slaughter and discord. I should never die. Cecil still stayed composed as he ranted. We cannot live forever, no matter how much we wanted to. And even if we did, would it be worth having? In his disbelief, Kuja smiled. I have nothing left to fear. I won't be afraid anymore, but I will not die alone. You shall all join me. He at last faded as the dark energy lifted into nothingness. Cecil took a deep, soothing breath. The fight was over between not only him and his enemy, but his internal conflicts as well. He no longer felt driven by his negativity because he had something to strive for his friends, for his brother who gave him sound advice, and for his duty on ending Furion! His eyes shut open as he remembered what he'd done. In his rage, he drained his light from within. He can't disappear the same way Kuja did. He was his friend. He just couldn't let this happen. As fast as the wind could carry him, he hurriedly ran down the massive crystal pillar to Kane and Yuna below. The duo tried using their potion and phoenix down, which were hard to find, but sadly with no result, as what Cecil feared, Furion's body started to disintegrate in a white light. They looked as they saw Cecil desperately running up to them. He knelt down and saw the terror. Can't go like this. There must be something I can do. How did I... Cecil! How could you do this? I may have done sinful things in the past, and so have you. This is by far the worst. Clearly he was right. He did let this happen. We couldn't cure him, and it's too late to bring him to Cosmos. If only someone could give his own energy to him. Maybe. Yuno's trying to hold back her tears. I can. They both looked up petrified. You must. He's fading fast. He can't last much longer. If Dark Knights take away and absorb people's lives, maybe Paladins give it. Of course, it's a polar opposite. Oh wait. You must. He's fading fast. He can't last much longer. If Dark Knights take away and absorb people's lives, maybe Paladins give it. Of course, it's a polar opposite. I can give his light back. Trust me. They They both reluctantly nodded as he performed the ritual. He laid a hand on his heart and took soft breaths as he shut his eyes. There was a very weak pulse, no heartbeat, and a slight rise and fall of his chest. All his thoughts and feelings shifted to Furion. How a good friend he was to him, how much they'd shared, including his dream, how they devoted themselves to end the conflict and protect Cosmos. His reverie was halted as Furion's body became more paler and immobile. His pulse began to stop and his breathing was slowly diminishing. Cecil's eyes squeezed as he noticed what was transpiring. He could never forgive himself if he were to lose him now, especially if it was from his own actions. His hand pressed down on his chest as he felt all his feelings and light energy be sent into him. He poured all his physical and emotional strength into him like a current. If he would give him enough, he wouldn't have to die. The eerie light disappeared as it was being replaced by an aura similar to Cosmos's. Kane and Yuna watched in awe as he concentrated harder. The light began to shine brighter on Cecil's hand and Furion's lifeless body, until it faded. The paladin felt very lightheaded and empty. He held his forehead as he moaned and slowly opened his eyes. It was as if he was awoken abruptly from a very deep sleep. Furion's hand began to twitch as he stirred. By the time he finally returned to consciousness, Cecil's dizziness passed. The dragoon and the summoner gathered close to him. Furion slowly opened his eyes. His vision was very blurry at first, but then the glare was gone as his eyes cleared. He saw Cecil, Kane, and Yuna look over him, all smiling. He felt relieved that they were all safe, especially Cecil, who was no longer malevolent. He felt his light as if he was being revived, like as if he gave his to him. Furion, you all right? Cecil, He looked at himself, realizing he wasn't dead, nor dreaming. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. He realized that the paladin was himself again. He was no longer being manipulated by Chaos's will. He'd seen and retrieved the light at last. You no longer have darkness within you. He shook his head with a frown. No, I still do harbor the darkness. But, as he raised a hand, dark matter emitted from his palm. I can now control it. I can willfully change in between them, when I must. But why? Why do you still possess the power of darkness? Both the light and the darkness give me strength. Everyone looked at him as he explained what his brothers said. Golbez, my brother, he said that no one is born black nor white. We all have both good and evil inside us, and we have the will whether or not to use them. I see now that how we came to this world or our worlds is irrelevant. Whether it's birth, summon, or creation, the choices we make dictates our own destinies, our decisions, our futures. It is what we do with these choices that determines who we are. I see. Since when are you so philosophical? A body of dark with a heart of light. Intriguing. Furion and the others set up. Let's go. We all should head back to Sanctuary. I'm certain that Cosmos is waiting for us. Indeed. One adversary has been defeated, but there are still many to overcome, physically or not, Furion concluded as he studied him who was still weary. They walked together with the moonlight night in the rear. Then he stopped and looked at the crystal in the sky. I will end this conflict. Cosmos, brother, and my friends, thank you. I am no longer alone. With his ability to harness both light and darkness in addition of the support of his friends and the determination of what he fights for, nothing, not even the god of discord himself, would ever influence him again. With his newfound strength, he would not stop at ending the conflict, and someday he'll return somewhere he once belonged. Before I bid you all farewell, I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who has read, followed, reviewed, and above all enjoyed this fic. I would like to share some info with you. Remember in Dissidia that Kuja is usually treated as an inferior compared to the other warriors? Well, here, Chaos sort of gave him the leg up in the competition. The Dark Crystal. The God of Discord was fascinated and curious about Cecil and how he was able to change instantly during battle, especially as a Dark Knight. So he decided to take this advantage to manipulate a Cosmos warrior rather than just summon an endless horde of mannequins. Much like he did with Terra, Cloud, and Titus. Weird how he feels pity to one of his comrades, especially the fragile, incompetent Janot. Also, I thought I might throw in some references. Yes, this fic was based on a dream I had months ago, which is years ago, actually. There were also some very interesting concepts. Basically, it can refer to anyone whose mind gets warped and turned completely volatile. Such films as Spider-Man 3, Dragon Ball Evolution, and games like Pokemon Coliseum, XD Gale of Darkness, and even within the Final Fantasy series tend to use this dark trope as a pleasurable, tempting, and addictive power which gives a person strength and no fear. But as Cloud and Gomez said, darkness is not always evil. It is at first fearful, like a kid who's afraid of the dark, thinking that something is lurking in the shadows, waiting for the ambush. However, the darkness can be useful, as Gomez said, there's no black or white, meaning that darkness can't vanquish evil, neither can the light unless it's used in combination with its opposite. Like both the light and dark crystals awaken the Giant of Babel or in the Mysidian prophecy, whereas Cecil wields both to defeat Zemus. As it states in Cecil's the X-Burst, lighting darkness cast aloft. The purpose of this fic, besides being centered on Cecil's coming to Dissidia, is to show that without darkness there can be no light. Hence it's why that it's not always malevolent. I seriously wish that the Dissidia franchise would eventually reveal his arrival and give him a much better role than the official quest, anyway. It was nice to include the origins of the warrior, but I always thought it was made too soon in ignoring the other characters. Thank you all so much for your support and encouragement. Well, that's it, guys. The short story is over, and I'm not sure what my next Final Fantasy project would be. But until then, this is the Ecron Writers signing out, and I hope you all enjoyed this short story about my all-time favorite character, Cecil Harvey. So, I'll see you guys next time.